Hello everyone. Welcome back to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate Certification Bootcamp. In this module, we are going to take a deep dive into one of the most important topics on AWS Solution Architect Associate exam, EC2 instance types and their purchase options. By end of this video, you will clearly understand the different instance families and which EC2 instance type is optimal for specific workloads or use cases. You will also learn what purchasing option is best for you. We'll discuss real-life scenarios and how to choose between on-demand, reserved instances, saving plans, spot instances, dedicated hosts or instances, and capacity reservations. We have received many requests to share notes or material for our video. In this module, we will guide you on how to access the quick reference notes or topic summary for this certification. This module covers key details that could appear in multiple AWS certification exam questions. So you may want to take notes. Grab your notebook and pen and let's get started. We'll start with EC2 instance types, and AWS provides a wide selection of over 850 instance types optimized to fit different use cases. Instance type comprise various combination of CPU, memory, storage, and networking capacity and give you the flexibility to choose the appropriate mix of resources for your applications. Available EC2 instance types are general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, accelerated computing, and high performance computing. Instance types are named based on their instance family and instance size. Now let's review Amazon EC2 naming convention and what is the meaning of every attribute in the instance name. The first letter in the instance name, it represents the series. For example, C represents compute optimized. You can see different options like I that represent storage optimized. For M that will be general purpose, T burstable, R memory optimized and all. The next letter 7 that represents the generation. In our previous module EC2 deep dive video, we have used T2 and T3 instance series. The next word or words, GN for our case, it represents option. In terms of different options, if you see A, that means it represents AMD processors. If you see G, that represent AWS Graviton processors. I represents Intel processor. M2 represents Apple M2 chip. You can see M2 Pro, that is M2 Pro chip. N for any network and EBS optimized EC2 instances. Then this series, generation and option combinedly make instance family. After the dot, you can see another one phrase that is 2x large for our example. This represents instance size. Based on the instance family, the size varies from micro, small, medium, large, extra large, 2x large, 4x large, even 8x large, 16x large. Different instance size comes with different CPU and RAM or memory combination. If we take a closer look, C5 large comes with 2 vCPU and 4 GB of RAM, whereas C5 4x large comes with 16 vCPU and 32 GB RAM. Now if you compare between T3 is burstable family and C5 is compute optimized, T3 extra large has 4 vCPUs and 16 GB of memory or RAM, whereas C5 extra large comes with 4 vCPU but 8 GB of memory. So based on the family, this large or extra large, the CPU or the RAM combination will also vary. When you combine the instance family and the instance size, it becomes the instance type. Now let's review different instance types available in AWS. We will start with general purpose. General purpose instances are best known for balanced compute, memory, and networking performance or for burstable CPU performance. In terms of instance family, we have two types. First, T or burstable. Examples could be T2 micro, T3 micro, T4G small, T3A large. Burstable families are cost effective and known for burstable CPU performance. In terms of use cases, burstable family or T series is based for development test or low traffic websites or even for microservices. The other in this series is M series, which is for balanced, and examples are M7G, M6I, M5 large. M series is known for balanced compute, memory and networking resources. In terms of use cases, you can use M series instances to host web applications, application server, or even small or medium databases. Let's move on to our next instance type, which is compute optimized. Compute optimized instances are designed for compute intensive applications that benefits from high performance processors. In terms of instance family, we have C or compute family. Out of many available examples, some of the examples could be C7G, C6A, C6I. In terms of properties, for compute optimized EC2 instances, you will see high vCPU to memory ratio. As an example, for any medium instances, you will see 1 vCPU to 2 GB of RAM. Any large instance will come with 2 vCPU and 4 GB of RAM, whereas extra large will come with 4 vCPU and 8 GB of RAM. In terms of use cases, compute optimized instances are ideal for batch processing workload, media transcoding, high performance web servers, high performance compute or HPC, scientific modeling, or even for dedicated gaming servers or ad server engine and machine learning inferences. Just remember, instances start with C is compute optimized, and compute optimized instances are for compute intensive workload. And please also remember other use cases that I have discussed in this slide. Moving on to our next type, memory optimized. Memory optimized instances are designed to deliver fast performance for memory intensive workloads or applications that process large datasets in memory. Here we are talking about instances with large RAM size. The instance family could be R or RAM optimized. Examples are R7Z, R6I, R6A. They have high memory to vCPU ratio. They are exactly opposite to compute optimized instances. If you have a requirement of extra high RAM up to 1 terabyte, then you can choose X series. X series is known for extra high memory. Examples could be X2IDN, X2GD. If you have a requirement for high CPU clock speed and memory both together, then you can look for Z series. G series is known for high frequency CPU plus memory. Examples could be Z1D. And last but not least, if you have a requirement of ultra high RAM or RAM up to 24 terabyte, then you can opt for U series. Example could be U7I. In terms of use cases, memory optimized instances are based for in-memory caching like Redis, Memcached, real-time big data analysis. If you have any requirement, you can use R series. If you are looking for a large in-memory databases like SAP or real-time analytics, then you need RAM of bigger size or extra high RAM. You can use X series. If you are looking for EAD tools or financial modeling, when you need high frequency CPU plus memory, you can go for Z series. Or if you have a use case for enterprise SAP HANA deployment, or if you have on-premise SAP HANA workload that you want to migrate to AWS Cloud, or if you want mega scale in-memory databases, in that case you can use U series or U series memory optimized database. Moving on to our next category, storage optimized. Storage optimized instances are designed for workloads that require high sequential read and write access to very large datasets on local storage. In terms of instance family, you can have I series, which is known for IOPS optimized. The examples could be i3 or i4i. IOPS optimized instances are optimized to deliver tens of thousands of low latency random IOPS to applications. The other instance type is D or dense storage category, which is ideal for high sequential throughput or HDD. Examples could be D3 or D3EN. The other example is H, which is throughput optimized. Throughput optimized instances come with high throughput HDD or hardware drive. Examples is H1. In terms of use cases for storage optimized, you can use storage optimized for NoSQL database if you want to host Cassandra, MongoDB, or any OLTP databases in your EC2 instance. If you want to host data warehouse, Hadoop, or log processing, in that case you can use D series. There you need dense storage capability. Or if you want to deploy MapReduce cluster or distributed file systems or big data workloads, then H series EC2 instance will be best for you. Moving on to our next category, accelerated computing. Accelerated computing instances use hardware accelerator or co-processors, which are ideal for applications with high GPU or field programmable gate array or FPGAs, or custom chips for machine learning, AI, graphics, and hardware accelerations. In terms of instance family, it has P series. P series provides required GPU for machine learning training, or this comes with high performance NVIDIA GPUs. G series, which comes with GPU for inference or graphics. Then we have INF, which comes with AWS Infernia chip. Then we have TRN, which comes with AWS Trainium chip, or F series for any FPGA workloads. In terms of use cases, you can use accelerated computing for any deep learning or HPC simulation. You can use for game streaming, machine learning inference, 3D rendering, or if you need cost-effective machine learning inferencing, then you can use INF series or AWS Infernia series. If you are looking for deep learning training at scale, then you can use TRN or Trainium series. And last but not least, if you have a requirement for custom hardware accelerated or for genomics or programmable FPGAs, then you can use F series EC2 instances. Now, since we have reviewed all the EC2 instance types, let's review instance purchase options. Because when you launch an EC2 instance, choosing the right pricing model is just as important as choosing the instance type, because you need to minimize the workload run cost. And here are the main options. You can use on demand, which is flexible and pay as you go model. You can also choose reserve instances where you need to commit to save money. Then we have savings plan. Savings plan are modern alternative of reserve instances. Savings plans are relatively flexible and it has usage-based commitment rather than instance-based commitment. Then you have spot instances where you can use AWS unused capacity and you can save up to 90% from on-demand pricing. Then you have dedicated host and instances where you will get isolated physical servers. And last but not least, you can go for capacity reservations. If you want to reserve capacity in a specific availability zone in advance, then you should opt for capacity reservations. Let's go through and review every EC2 purchase options in detail. We'll start with on-demand. On-demand instances are the simplest to understand and you pay for the compute capacity by the second or the hour. Here pricing is calculated based on instance hour you consume for each instances, and instance hour is the time between the instance is launched until it is terminated or stopped. Now if you have instances that you are consuming for full 1 hour, you will be charged based on the hour. But if your consumption goes beyond 1 hour and for each partial instance hour you consume, you will be billed per second for Linux, Windows with SQL Enterprise Edition, Windows with SQL Standard Edition, and Windows with SQL Web instances. For any other instance type, you will be billed per hour basis like Red Hat, Mac OS. For on-demand instance, you do not need any long-term commitment. You can launch the instance and then you can terminate whenever you don't need it. There is no upfront cost. Think of on-demand instances like renting a car by the hour. You get the flexibility, but it is not the most cost-efficient long-term solution for you. That is why on-demand instances are great for unpredictable workloads or short-term and uninterrupted workloads. In terms of use cases, if you have a requirement for testing environments or one-time batch job, or if you have a workload with spike and you do not know the traffic pattern, in that case, on-demand instance could be your best bet and could be best purchasing option. Moving on to our next purchase option, reserve instance. Reserve instances or RI allow you to reserve capacity and save money, and you can commit to 1 year or 3-year terms. In return, reserve instance provides you a significant discount up to 72% compared to on-demand instance pricing. There are two different types of reserve instance. One is standard RI, which is cheapest, but you cannot change instance family once you commit. The other option is convertible RIs. Convertible RI provides less savings, but you can exchange the instance type. Also, reserve instance comes with two different options. One is zonal, that is specific to any availability zone, and zonal reserve instance provide capacity guarantee, whereas regional instance are more flexible but no guarantee of capacity. AWS offers 3 upfront payment options for you to provide with the payments, and you can pay either all upfront, partial upfront, or no upfront. Please remember, more upfront payment you will provide, more savings you will have. AWS billing automatically applies to your reserve instance discounted rate when attributes of an EC2 instance uses matches with the attributes of your any active reserve instance reservation. In terms of attributes that is required to be matched is instance types, platforms. If you are running your EC2 instances with default tenancy, then you should go for default tenancy reservation. On the other hand, for dedicated tenancy, you should reserve the dedicated tenancy reserve instances. And last but not least, you have AZ or availability zone, that is also comes as instance attribute, and that is applicable for any zonal reserve instances. That is why AZ is optional for us. Now let's compare standard reserve instance with convertible reserve instance. If you compare the term versus the discount, for standard reserve instance, you will get 1 year with 40% discount, but if you will go for 3 years, that time you will get 60% discount. Since convertible reserve instance provide less savings than standard, but with greater flexibility, that is why convertible reserve instance will provide 31% compared to your on-demand pricing if you reserve for 1 year, whereas 54% for any 3-year reservation. Please note that these discounts 40%, 60%, that is based on July 2025 data. If you are following this video after 1 year or 2 years, please refer the reserve instance pricing page for any updated discounts, because AWS changes this percentage frequently. In terms of EC2 attribute changes like availability zone, instance size for Linux, or networking type, standard reserve instance allowed you to change availability zone, instance size for Linux, and the networking type. And to do so for standard reserve instance, you need to call the modify reserve instance API, or you can do from the AWS console. When it comes to convertible, for convertible reserve instance, you can perform this change using Exchange Reserve Instance API or from AWS console. However, when it comes to changing instance families, operating system, tenancy, and payment option, standard reserve instance does not provide you to alter these parameters, but convertible reserve instance allow you to change this. You should purchase reserve instances when you have a steady state workload like a database server that runs round the clock, and you know the workload will run constantly for next 1 or 3 years. Reserve instances are not suitable for short-term workloads because reserve instances require a 1 year or 3 year commitment. Since standard reserve instances provide less flexibility in terms of changing EC2 instance families or operating system, after purchasing a reserve instance, if you don't need it anymore or the instance is not compatible with your current requirement, you can always sell it via reserve instance marketplace. Please remember, you can sell an unused reserve instance or purchase a third-party standard reserve instance only via reserve instance marketplace. AWS Marketplace is for software and services, not for standard reserve instances. Any reserved instance purchased from a third-party seller via reserved instance marketplace has no difference compared to a standard reserved instance directly from AWS. However, the third-party reserved instance might come with a discount or with a shorter term. Moving on to our next EC2 purchase option, which is savings plan. Savings plans are modern alternative to reserve instances because in savings plan, instead of committing to a specific instance type, you commit to a dollar amount per hour over the period of 1 year or 3 years. If you have purchased a savings plan, AWS applies the discount automatically to your EC2 uses. And if you have any uses beyond the savings plan commitment, then you will get a bill based on the on-demand EC2 pricing. There are different types of savings plan. To start with, compute savings plan. Compute savings plan provide the most flexibility and it will help you to reduce your cost by 66%. Compute savings plan automatically applies to EC2 instance uses regardless of instance family, size, availability zone, regions, operating system or tenancy, and also it will be applied to any Fargate and Lambda uses. For example, with compute savings plan, you can change from C4 instance type to M5 instances, or even you can shift a workload from UST 1 to EU London, or even you can move your workload from EC2 to Fargate or Lambda, and AWS will automatically apply the discount to your compute charges. The next in the category is EC2 savings plan. EC2 instance savings plan provide the lowest prices, offering savings up to 72% in exchange for commitment to uses of individual instance family in a region. That is, you need to reserve for M5 instance in Northern Virginia. This is less flexible than compute saving instances. That is why it provides higher discounts. EC2 savings plan gives you the flexibility to change your uses between instances within a family in that region. For example, you can move from C5 extra large running in Windows to C5 2x large running with Linux, and AWS will automatically apply the discounts for your compute uses. And the last in the category is SageMaker savings plan. SageMaker savings plan provides up to 64% cost savings for eligible SageMaker machine learning instance uses, including SageMaker Studio Notebook, SageMaker On-Demand Notebook, SageMaker Processing, SageMaker Data Wrangler, SageMaker Training, or SageMaker Real-Time Inferences. Savings plans are great for dynamic workloads where you may need to switch instance type and you want to save on long term. That means you need those instances on a long term basis, but you do not know which instance type that you will need for next 1 year or 3 years. The next purchase option is spot instance. With EC2 spot instance pricing, AWS lets you to take advantage of unused EC2 capacity, and they are available at up to 90% discount compared to on-demand pricing. But here is the catch. Spot instances can be terminated with only 2 minutes of notice if AWS needs that capacity back. That is why spot instances are best for any fault tolerant or stateless workload. You can use spot instances for various stateless or flexible applications such as batch job, big data, containerized workload, machine learning training, CI/CD pipeline, or even for test and deployment workload. When you are using spot instances, you can define how AWS manages the request, and you can create one-time request. One-time request will run once until you terminate, or it will be interrupted by AWS. And the next is persistent request. Persistent request will keep on trying to launch instances if they got interrupted. In terms of spot pricing option, when you are creating that spot request, you can either set a maximum or the capped price, that what you want to pay at max for this instance, or you can keep it open, that means no maximum price for that instance. Also, when you are creating a spot request, either you can set an expiry date or you can keep it open, that means without any expiry. And in terms of interruption behavior, that means when your EC2 spot instance can be interrupted by AWS when they need that capacity, either you can set to hibernate, stop, or you can terminate. For this certification, please watch for words like fault tolerant, stateless workloads, flexible workloads, or any seasonal spike. If you see any question with any of these words, then spot is the potential answer for you. Moving on to our next pricing option, dedicated instances. Dedicated instances run on hardware that is dedicated to your AWS account, and it provides isolation from other customers' instances. However, you don't control the physical server, and you will be billed per instance, not per host. Dedicated instances are useful for customers with compliance or regulatory need, but if the customer does not require any physical server control. If you need physical server control, then you should go for EC2 dedicated host. With dedicated host, you get an entire EC2 physical server. And why does it matter? You can bring your own licenses or BYOL for Windows Server or Oracle. You get the visibility into sockets, core, and host affinity, which is not available with dedicated instances. But you have to remember, since you have the entire control on the physical EC2 infrastructure, and that is dedicated only for you, this is the most expensive option. You should not choose unless and until if you have enterprise compliance requirement or any licensing requirement, or if you are running any legacy applications where you need that control at the hardware level. Now let's compare dedicated instances with dedicated host. In terms of dedicated physical server, dedicated host will provide physical server with instance capacity fully dedicated to you, whereas dedicated instances, it will provide the physical server that is dedicated to a single customer account. If we will review the instance capacity sharing, you can share capacity with other AWS account if you have an AWS organization, but for dedicated instances, you cannot share this capacity with other AWS account. In terms of billing, for dedicated host, you will be billed per host, whereas for instances, you will be billed per instances. In terms of visibility to socket or codes, dedicated host provide that visibility, and dedicated instance does not provide. If you are looking for host and the instance affinity, then dedicated host is the option. If you are looking for targeted instance placement, again you need to go for the dedicated host. And if you want to bring your own licenses, then dedicated hosts support any type of BYOL, whereas dedicated instances provide partial support. What does partial support mean? If you have a license mobility agreement with Microsoft, and if you already own Microsoft SQL Server or Windows desktop licenses with software assurance, then you can reuse them on an EC2 dedicated instance. However, if a license has a per core requirement, that is not supported by dedicated instance. And last but not least, in terms of capacity reservation, For dedicated host, you cannot reserve capacity, whereas with dedicated instance, you can reserve the capacity. Talking about capacity reservation, now let's review the EC2 purchase option with capacity reservation. Capacity reservation allows you to guarantee instance availability in a specific availability zone. This is ideal for mission critical workload and you always have the capacity when you need it. You can reserve capacity without needing to pay any upfront payment, and it works with on-demand or reserved instances. That means there is no billing discount with capacity reservation. You can create or cancel capacity reservation anytime and there is no time limit. If you have a capacity reservation, then AWS will charge you at on-demand rate irrespective if you run that instance or not. You will pay if you have a capacity reservation unless and until you will cancel that. Capacity reservation is suitable if you have a requirement for short-term but uninterrupted workloads that need bulk amount of EC2 instances in a specific availability zone. This topic is highly testable in the certification exam, and AWS loves to give you real-world scenarios asking which purchase option is most cost-effective or appropriate based on your requirement. That is why it's important to understand different purchasing options. Let's summarize all the available EC2 purchase options. You can use on-demand if you are looking for flexibility. You can use reserve instances or savings plan for any long-term workload with a greater discount than on-demand pricing. You can use spot instances for any fault-tolerant or interruptible workloads. You can use dedicated host or instances when compliance and/or license matters for you. And you can use capacity reservations if you want to ensure availability. Please remember, choosing the right pricing model can significantly reduce your cost and improve the reliability of your application. Before we conclude this video, let's go to AWS Management Console and let's review these options in action. I have logged into my AWS Management Console. From the service search option, I'll type EC2. Now from EC2 dashboard, in the left hand side, if you see, we have instances, instance types. Let's click instance types. Here you have all different types of instances. You can filter. Let's type C, instance type as C type or compute instances. I can go C3 large. If you filter like that, you can either select one instance or even you can clear the filter and you can list all the EC2 instances. As of today, AWS has total 922 different types of instances. There is a pagination. You can navigate to select different instance options. Now here is your spot request. If you want to request for a spot instance, you can create a spot fleet request. Here is your purchase history. You can access if you have purchased an EC2 instances. If you want to purchase savings plan, you can navigate from here and you can click savings plan. And here you can create purchase savings plan. You can click reserve instances and from here you can purchase the reserve instances. For dedicated host, you can purchase the dedicated host here and also the capacity reservations. Next, we'll try to launch an EC2 instance and we'll review the spot instance option. So for that, I'll go to EC2 dashboard. I'll click launch instance. You can skip the instance name. Let's go with the default Amazon Linux. AMI option, let's go with the default option. Here are different instance types. You can see for T2 Nano, CPU is 1 and memory is 0.5 GB. If you come to T2 Micro, where you have 1 vCPU 1 GB, T2 Small 1 vCPU 2 GB of memory, and based on the selected instance type, you can have different combinations of vCPU and RAM. Let's select anything. I'll go with T2 Micro and then I'll scroll to advanced details. Under advanced details, if you scroll bottom, you will see purchase option. Now, if you want to go for capacity reservation, then you can go capacity blocks. For spot instances, here you can go for the spot instance. You can customize the spot instance option. Here are the options. Either you can go with no maximum price or you can set a maximum price. I'll go with no maximum price. In terms of request types, you can go either one time or persistent. I'll go one time. In terms of valid, either you can set no expiry date or you can go with the expiry date, and you can select the date and time, and you can select up to hours mark. I'll go with no request expiry. And the last option is interruption behavior. Here you can select either hibernate, stop or terminate. I'll go with stop, or maybe I'll go with terminate, and then we can go ahead and click launch instance. If you launch this instance, instead of on-demand pricing, this instance will be charged based on the spot pricing. Please remember, when you select the purchase option as spot, that time there is no free tier, although you have selected T2 micro, which is free tier eligible. Now last, let's review the spot prices. For that, I'll go to instances. From the left hand side, spot request, and here is the pricing history. Here you can see the spot pricing history. Now let's select instance type. For C3 large, here is the spot pricing option. You can select the date range from 3 hours to 3 months, and it will show you the average spot prices based on the capacity available to AWS. And here you can see the current saving is 69.28%. For a C3 large instance, this is the cheapest pricing option. That is why you have the cheapest tag here. If I'll go with this combination, instance type T2 micro, availability zone UST1A and platform Linux or Unix, then spot price is 0.0027 per vCPU, and you can realize 76.33% of savings compared to on-demand pricing. Recently, we have received numerous requests to share the notes or presentation from our sessions. In response, we have begun creating Medium blogs that contain the necessary details as session notes or AWS certification cheat sheets. We will provide the URL of these blogs in the video description. Please review the content and let us know your feedback. That wraps up this module. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more AWS exam preparation courses and cloud certification bootcamps. Got questions or feedback? Drop them in the comment. We love to hear from you. Thanks for learning with us at CloudExpert Solutions. You are now one step closer to crushing your exam. See you in the next module.